very welcome to tonight's event, which is the second in our series of virtual art galleries hosted by myself, Fiona Whelan, on behalf of Crafters of Ireland and also in association with the Irish American Business Network. So this evening we're going to be hearing from 7 artists, designers, sculptors who will have the pleasure of bringing you through their artwork and also to give you a little bit of a background on their story and how they came to be in the industry they're in. Each speaker will speak for approximately 5 minutes just to give everybody equal time to present their work. And of course, if you require any further information, you can contact Bernie at Crafters of Ireland, but we will also send you details of each of the designers here on presenting this evening. So without further ado, I'm going to hand you over to Bernie, who'd just like to say a few words before we hear from our first artist of the evening, who is David. Bernie.
Thanks, Fiona, and I'd like to welcome everyone and thank you for joining us this evening. As Fiona said, it's our second live event. A big thank you to the Irish American Business Network, Fiona Whelan of Brand Fusion, who has stepped in to help us this evening, and Simon Hodgkins, a renowned speaker and CMO.
Thank you, Bernie. And David, we would like to hand over to you now to make your presentation. Thank you.
Hi, guys. There we go. So firstly, I want to thank you for taking the time to allow me to share my passion and peculiar view of the world with you. My background, my name is David. I'm an artist from County Mayo. I'm currently living near Galway City in the west of Ireland. And I have been painting for over 20 years, primarily murals, books, but predominantly oil painting. And I've been fortunate enough to have my collection added to works in Ireland, UK, and the US. So what do I paint? I can roughly split my work into 2 camps. They both involve carefully crafted oil paintings with only the intention differing. So example 1, I call fun art portraits. These typically are oil paintings with the heart of a caricature designed to humorously portray a commissioned work or a whimsical scenario. And in these 2 examples, on the left is a Hobbiton Hike, which was a commissioned portrait for a wife or her husband, which tells the tale of his passion for Tolkien, his love of terriers and wine, and of regaling people of his youthful exploits as a rugby player. So he's in his jersey of back in the day. And the image just below that is the vehicle, which is rather difficult to drive due to square wheels, packed full of male sheep, aka rams, and that's known as hard drive with extra ram. So you can see that. But what I'll be focusing on this evening is what I call David Bogg. This replaces humor, the primary goal, with more of an inquisitive, contemplative approach to the world. And an analogy that I have for that is like thinking of fun art as trying to entertain your friends in the pub, whereas with David Bogg, you're kind of walking into a cathedral, marveling at its construction, but also kind of trying to ponder the motivations behind building that. So in this presentation, I'll be focusing on paintings in this genre. I also draw a lot of inspiration from the landscape and the stories from the west of Ireland. So without further ado, the first painting is The Merchant of Eden. So this is quite a large painting. It's about 1 meter by 8, as you can see. And the theory behind The Merchant is me kind of fumbling with the idea of civilization, what's lost and what's gained, sort of a comfortable, longer, healthier lifestyle that comes at the loss of losing a tactile connection with the environment that has molded and honed our bodies for that particular little niche. The setting is my biblical Garden of Eden, which in this scenario is actually based on the waterfalls in Killarney. And we can see people living in harmony with their environment. And in the foreground, we have my version of Eve reaching curiously for the philosophy of Adam Smith, representing economics, which I portray here as a merchant trader in the form of a Galway hooker, which is the name of the boat, and is a traditional fishing boat that's found in the west coast of Ireland. I chose mainly for aesthetic reasons. So again, there's no right or wrong answer. This is just more of a concept in a visual form. So a few details of that picture. The painting, it took about a month to paint, and you can contrast sort of the organic, sort of lucid brushwork with the tighter structured work of the hull of the boat, which is kind of plays off the 2 dynamics I was going for. So yeah, and then I'll keep moving. The second picture I have is called The Children. This loosely takes inspiration from the Irish folktale Children of Lear, which very briefly is the story of a stepmother who curses her 4 stepchildren out of jealousy for spending time with their father and turns them into swans for 900 years. In my painting, I kind of diverge from that narrative, but you'll use the imagery and I focus on it as a metamorphic transition. So going from sort of almost childhood into becoming an adult, and you're literally growing up, becoming increasingly more independent until you're old enough and confident enough to spread your wings and leave the proverbial nest of home. So there's the 3 stages there, which can be seen in closer detail there. So you have the young child, and then you have the teenage girl who's developing her wings and sort of testing her boundaries. And then in the next image, the fully fledged swan heading off to set up its own little roost. Again, the inspiration for this particular image came from climbing Carrincouhil. So I based it on a lake halfway up that mountain. I'm moving swiftly on to the 3rd image. This is more of a traditional landscape with the aim of just trying to catch the light and relaxed feel of the scene. I was back home in Mayo, and it's actually a meadow behind my parents' house where my uncle's horses were grazing. It was a lovely sunny day. The field was like wild with grass and thistles. The hedges and trees, they were like overflowing and ripe with foliage, and the horses were lazily moving about the field and casually eating. The whole vibe was kind of very relaxing, and I was just trying to catch that carefree, slow pace and the light of the countryside that day. Although again, some more detailed looks. So this took about a week to paint. These paintings are slow, it takes a lot of drying time between layers. But this one is looser than the other 2. It's more impressionistic in its brush strokes, which can be clearly seen on that. And the white horse was kind enough to move over, and I was able to get to paint him twice. So that kind of brings me to the end of my presentation. I just want to thank you for the opportunity to share some of my work with you. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to contact. And thank you.
Thanks, David. Absolutely stunning pieces of work. I love the Children of Lear. I think we all are brought back to our childhood when we were learning first about that. So thank you so much for that. Moving swiftly along now, I'd like you to introduce you to Moira, who's now going to present on her own work.
Thank you, Fiona. I'm just going to hit share there. Right, so thanks very much, and to everyone in the background as well who's organising this, Crafters of Ireland and the Irish Businesses, American Business Association, and Joe and Bernie and everybody who's involved. So my name is Moira OConnell, and I have a small casting studio here in West Cork. And up until March last year, I was concentrating on life casting, where I would create molds of, it was family groups is where I focus. You know, all of my work is about family connections and memories, and just to keepsakes for family. So I had to stop that last year, but I very quickly realized that I could get into something else. I had seen silver fingerprint jewelry and bought myself a kit, spent a couple of months learning and trial and error. And this was actually my first very successful piece. It's my 2 children's fingerprints. So they're like I say, it was practice, and I kept my Facebook and my Instagram audience involved while I was doing that. So almost straight away, I had someone contact me to see if I could do a little something for her. Her first grandchild had just been born, but because of COVID, she wasn't able to meet him or give him a hug or anything. But we were able to get a fingerprint impression from him. I posted out some molding materials, and her daughter did the impression, and I created a tiny little charm for her. And it's something tactile, something she could hold on to, even while she couldn't get a little squeeze from her new grandchild. She had something of his essence, say. So that was very sweet. And again, to the family connection, these are prints from 2 little boys who are living here, but their granny lives in Chile, and she hasn't seen them in over a year and a half. But that was sent off to her as just a little keepsake, a little something from her Irish grandchildren, to keep them close by her, to keep them, you know, close at hand and close. And as we know, fingerprints are unique to all of us. So only those boys could have made that mark, which is very special for her to have. A bit of the process then. So there's 2 ways I have of taking fingerprint impressions. This silicone, molding silicone, I can post out to people. They take the impression at home and post it back to me, and I, magic and wizardry, I turn it into, or stamp it into some silver. Now this, it's lovely print, but it's only as deep as your own natural print. And I've discovered that, you know, we have different depths in our prints and different levels of clarity in them. So for these, I often add a patina to highlight some details of the print. This was a present for a mom. It was her 3 children together, so she wears that to hold on to them. And then the second way I have of taking impressions is simple at home. It's kind of like CSI at your kitchen table, using sellotape and a pencil. You can take the impression very quickly, very easily. All you need to do then is take a photograph of that on your phone and send it to me. And again, through the computer and creating stamps, I can create a stamp then to impress into the silver. Again, it's your own fingerprint, but it's more stylized in this one. And you know, the clarity is there, and the depth of print is there. It's guaranteed with this way. And similarly, a similar process for prints, for hand prints like this. Now, this one was very, very special one. And indeed the following one. Here in Ireland, when a little baby is stillborn or dies soon after birth, the hospital, as a keepsake for the parents, take impressions of the hand and the footprints of the baby. And I'm able to take that and turn it into something very, very tangible. And I know just from feedback from customers, the act of holding on to something tangible, only that little baby could have made a mark like that. And that's a very special thing for parents to have. You know, it's also very special for, you know, not just because it's a memorial piece, but, you know, your children who are hale and hearty, say, they're special pieces for that as well. This next one, again, was a memorial piece, and it was very special. This was from a young woman who died a few years ago, just before her 21st birthday, of meningitis. And again, the hospital took her handprint, and her sister Kate contacted me because she'd seen me on social media, contacted me to see if I could do something. And I had the handprint. I was able to do that, no problem, but I had a closer look, and in one of the fingerprints there was just enough detail in the lines that I could create a stamp. And that was the first piece I made for Kate that went to her mom, who was able to hold it. Grania was her sister's name, and Gra, G-R-A, Fada, that's the shortened version of Grania, and it's also the Irish word for love. So it's a very special piece. And you know, it's a real honor and it's a privilege to be able to provide a family with something like that they can hold on to. And just finally, very recently, I was looking at ideas for the guys, because not all men will wear jewelry. So I found a supplier of this beautiful Bogg oak. I've just put some of these on my Crafters of Ireland page just today, and I'll be putting the ornaments up again soon. And I love the idea of this ancient oak that's been in the ground for so long. Like when our ancient ancestors were walking the woodlands of Ireland. And now you can have your family prints, or, you know, little baby prints or whatever it is on them. So they're, like I say, they're new experiments, and they've just gone on my Crafters page, and a couple of more samples there of ornamental pieces. And again, a keyring. You can see I love the detail on the Bogg oak, and it's very tactile itself. So that's where I am at the minute. And again, thanks to everybody for your attention and for letting me on here. Thank you.
Thanks, Moira. Certainly really, really powerful stories there. As a mum, I can certainly say I would love to create fingerprints of my children. I have all of their handprints and footprints hanging up on a frame on my wall, but to be able to carry it with me, I think, is even more powerful. So absolutely fabulous. I'd like now to hand you over to Noel, who will tell you his story and present his work now. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm Noel. I'm from Dublin, famous part of the Dublin, the Liberties. So I hope you'll understand the accent. So I'll start off. I do copper embossing, and that's just working copper sheets. So this one is the lady with the umbrella, and she's at the Guinness gate at the Guinness Brewery in Dublin 8, which is a 2-minute walk away from exactly where I live. And any day you go by this gate, you'll see tourists from all over the world posing, getting photos taken. And hail, rain or snow, they're there getting the photo taken with this gate. And the next piece we go on to is the tarred brooch, the controversial tarred brooch, which was found in 1850 on a beach in Bettystown in County Meath. And why it's controversial is because they reckon it was found further inland on somebody's land, but the people that found it said he found it on the beach because nobody owns the beach, where the people that own the land would have been able to claim the piece. So that's what's a bit controversial around that. So that's me representation of the tarred brooch. So my next piece is back to the lady with the umbrella, and here she's at the pillars of the GPO. The GPO is in O'Connell Street, Dublin City's main street, and it was famous for the 1916 rise and been taken over from the rebels to state their resistance against the British rule in Ireland. So next piece we have is I just call it the Claddagh and the Shamrock, and really good representation of Ireland with the Claddagh ring, which was the original Celtic wedding ring, and then the Shamrock that is known all over the world as Irish. So I mean, next piece, back to the woman, the lady with the umbrella again, and here she's walking over the Halfpenny Bridge. The Halfpenny Bridge was opened in May 1816 and originally charged 1/2 penny, which was shortened then to the Halfpenny Bridge, the only pedestrian bridge over the Liffey for many years. So I'll just scroll through another couple of pieces. Let me walk the Celtic cross here. Celtic knot cross with the shamrock at its heart, and then scroll near the end there for someone's name or date. And then we have the old Viking. He might look angry, but I'd say he has a heart of gold. He's never done that. He never done that wrong in their lifetime, except sail the seas and stop where they wanted and took what they wanted and whomever they wanted it. So next I have Tree of Life. And this one I think is a bit special because the trunk is made up of a man and woman embracing. So I'd say there's loads of little trees of life then coming after their embrace. And then going on, this horse head was inspired by my daughter's love of horses. So I made this piece especially for her. So just a couple more pieces. Horus and Anubis, two old aging gods. Another Celtic knot shamrock with a scroll at the end for a name or date. And Ronnie Drew of the Dubliners. The famous Ronnie Drew. You'd never mistake his voice. May he rest in peace. And me dragon, this is my favourite piece that I've ever done. Not everybody's liking, but it's mine. I love it. The detail that I put into this piece took me about 4 or 5 days to finish. And then I've done this for an auntie of ours. She's a healing. She heals with angels. So this was just a present for her. And I've got many likings for it as well, a few orders. And then last but not least, just the representation of my dog, the German Shepherd. I do lots of other dogs as well, all pets. So that's me. Thanks very much. Hope you like me walk.
Thanks so much, Noel. You certainly kept me smiling through that presentation, all the different places to recognise. I'd love to see Ronnie Drew as well. And I'd no problem understanding your accent, but sure, I'm a fellow Dub as well, so maybe I was at an advantage. I have to say, I love the detail, particularly in the one at the GPO, just capturing the lamp as well. It was incredible. It's just really iconic. So thank you very much for that. And now we're moving over to Fiona, if you're ready. We'll bring you forward and you can certainly talk through your artwork, some of which we can see directly behind you as we discussed earlier. But Fiona, I'll hand over to you now. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Fiona Cannon. I'm an artist from Spiddal in County Galway on the west coast of Ireland. I specialise in watercolour paintings of my local landscape and sunsets. Okay, so this is just an installation view of my work on display at the Art Source Art Fair in the RDS in Dublin. So the first painting I'm going to talk about is a painting of the Galway hookers, which, as they were in David's painting earlier, are traditional Irish fishing boats which are found around the west coast of Ireland. They're known by their black hull and their rust red sails. They used to be used for transporting turf around the areas, but now they're leisure. And they have races during the summer, which are called OConnell, which is Irish for Kirk races. So these were races back in Letchermore in Connemara. So I took a photograph and then I come home to the studio. I draw it out in pencil and then I start, excuse me, adding washes of colour to the painting. So it's quite a slow process. I tend to work on about 10 paintings at the same time because you have to let each layer dry. Excuse me. So that is that one. So the second kind of work that I do is primarily colour. I love colour, and we're very lucky here in the West Coast to have beautiful sunsets. And with the bad weather we have, we actually get very dramatic skies, which can be very beautiful. So this is, I went back to Coral Strand, which is a beautiful beach in Carrow, back in Connemara, and it's my go-to place to kind of clear my head and, you know, inspire myself. So when I was back there one day, and just this beautiful golden sunset, bursts of yellow, oranges, golds, excuse me, and just reflecting on the water. And again, washes and washes of colour, let them dry, build it up like that. Okay, so the next one is Night Falling Spiddal. So this was actually a sunset outside my house, quite dramatic. It's kind of like a shepherd's delight, pinks, purples, oranges, yellows, and then you've got your dramatic indigos and purples. So this one actually took about 6 months of, you know, layer, dry, layer, 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 and the silhouette of the landscape at the bottom there. And then the last one I'm going to talk about is this heritage series I started last year during lockdown, because none of us could go anywhere. So I went through my collection of photographs, and it's something I've been meaning to do for years because I love drawing. So this is one of the Galway Cathedral, which is in the middle of Galway town. It's a very imposing building. I think it's very beautiful. So what I do, so it's black ink pen on very heavy watercolor paper. So the trick with drawing is if you have a light tone, a medium tone, and a dark tone, you create form and structure. So I use the white paper as the light tone. Then I use the kind of cross hatching to create kind of the mid tones, and then the really dark to create the depth. And I think that brings the drawing together. So these, because there isn't the drawing process involved, these could take up to a week, but they're much quicker to do than the watercolor paintings. So I've about 20 to 25 in my heritage collection, and I'm very pleased with the way they turned out. So that's me. So I'd like to thank the Crafters of Ireland and the Irish American Business Network for organising this event, and to everyone for listening to me, and to my fellow exhibitors, thanks very much. That's me.
Thanks so much, Fiona. Your work, again, like David's, is absolutely beautiful. And having spent quite a lot of time in the west of Ireland, particularly around Galway, you've certainly captured those sunsets and done them. They're just desserts. So certainly the work is beautiful. And now we're moving over to Glenn.
Hello, everyone. Thanks again for the opportunity to share my work and my obsession. I'm a sculptor based in Galway. I think Galway is well represented tonight. I'm what you might call an accidental artist. I didn't mean to do it. I fell into a bowl of paper clips and little people started to appear, and then I was hooked. So I just kept making them. And as if the obsession with paper clips weren't enough, I found reels of wire, and soon they started to get bigger and bigger and more complex. The trapeze one there is, I think it's 3.5 meters wide. What's that in American? It's 9-10 feet wide, thereabouts. The ones over this side, they're only the short ones, about 12-14 inches tall. So in the beginning, I predominantly explored the figurative form. The piece on the right there is called The Messenger, and it seemed like that kind of theme threaded through my work for a few years. The paper clips thing, by the way, was 20 years ago, so it's been a while. I actually wanted to put paper together the other day, and I didn't have a paper clip, so I had to make one out of wire. Full circle. Anyway, my first public showing was in Harvey Milk's old camera shop in the Castro in San Francisco, which is quite apt considering it's Pride Month this month. So down at the bottom there, you can see that's probably one of the first trees I made, but it was predominantly figures and movement, capturing movement in single snapshots. Due to family commitments, I moved back to Ireland in 2008, and since then I've had some shows locally and nationally. And I still return to the human form and myth and mysticism I'm fascinated with. This is called The Fall of Icarus. I've made a few different versions, but that one has about a 7-foot wingspan. This is another based on a winged man and was called The Harbinger. And it's actually pictured there on the top of the hill in Clare overlooking Galway. But trees, I think I'm probably most known for trees because I love making them. There's something about the process of making them that I find very meditative. The ones there on the wood, that's Irish bog oak. I use copper, but I predominantly use dark annealed steel wire. This one over the other side is rose quartz and jade on bog oak. They're not always on wood. This is stainless steel. And again, there's something almost hypnotic about the process of making them. I think it's repetitive nature. It makes it that way. I did a series called The Bog Meets the Baltic. Again, that's Irish bog oak. And I picked up the amber when I was on a trip through Eastern Europe in December a few years ago. And it just fascinates me that bog oak was buried for about 7,500 years, but the amber itself used to be pulsing through a tree around 2 million years ago. So the idea of bringing it back into the form of a tree was one I couldn't let pass by. Again, bog oak features heavily in my work. That piece there, again, about 7,500 years old. So Stone Age man was knocking about the place looking for dinner, and that was a tree that maybe he sat under. And just to give you an idea of the scale, that's my mate Mike standing next to it. It's 11.5 feet tall. That piece is available if anyone wants it. Shipping is a little extra as I have to deliver it and install it. It's not something you can take out of the box and plop right down. And this one is obviously a wall hung piece backlit with LED. It's on a piece of yellow birch. Again, that one's about 9 feet long, and it's made of dark annealed steel wire and sits off the wall a little bit. It's quite an attention getter in a room. As I said, I love making trees. Usually before I start a long session in the studio, I make a small tree to kind of like a warm up, and that developed into a product called the Connemara Hawthorn tree, and it comes in a presentation box. I actually developed this particular version of this for QVC a couple of years ago, and I developed a way of making it so that I could replicate the form without any two being the same, but without any two being too dissimilar. So it was a thin line to tread. Anyway, they're available on the Crafters of Ireland website, or you can get in touch through any of the other social media. I'm fascinated. I still keep going back to human form, but now I've started to explore life-size figures with empty space inside. So it's this play on the idea of seemingly solid objects. What mystics from all cultures have been telling us for years, science is now coming around and acknowledging that we're not these masses of solid stuff. We're more fluid and connected to the world around us. Anyway, this is an exploration called that. And the whole series is called Seemingly Solid Things. And this particular one was called The Observer and the Observed, and was taken as a literal connection of the observer and the observed, which was in a talk by Krishnamurti years ago. And it kind of stuck in my head, so I did that. Oh, by the way, that is, again, 11.5 feet tall. So it's not something you'd have in your living room necessarily, unless you have a big living room. So my favorite part of my practice at the moment is the teaching part. So I teach private workshops here at the studios. I was doing them online for a while, but obviously the old COVID slapped that back a step or two. But I've also been doing work with schools, which I find really enjoyable because you learn so much, and they're the best critics in the world because, you know, it's coming from a good place. So we do these projects where each kid makes a tree, they bring it home, and then they all make various components of a tree, which I then knit together into one big tree, and that gets left at the school. So the kids leave their mark by having a tree remain behind them. It's called the legacy tree. So that's, I think there's a lot more of those projects coming up in the future. I just heard the other day. Yeah, I've run a non-profit called Art and Mind, which promotes mental well-being through creative practice. The website's up there. That's my website, and that says thank you. So that means it's over. I'd just like to thank Simon and Fiona. Thanks a million for your help today, and to the Irish American Business Networks, Crafters of Ireland, Joe, John, and to Bernie. Thank you all very much. And
thanks so much, Glenn. I had the pleasure of being introduced to your work for the first time during our very first virtual art gallery, and your work still blows me away. It's absolutely stunning. I really love the idea of the legacy tree. I think it's fantastic. And having a couple of teenage daughters going through TY, I certainly will be adding it to the list of possibilities for them to do. So thank you so much. Now going to hand you over to Orla.
Hey everyone, my name is Orla O'Rourke. I'm the founder of Stable Door Pottery. I started doing my own ceramics, I suppose, in school, and I continued it from there. So I went and I done a ceramic design course in college. Now, when that was over, I decided to start up my own studio. So I converted some stables, and I also had a love of horses. So that's where the name came from, Stable Door Pottery. You can see my old studio there in the background. It's a bit rough and ready, but it does the job fine. There's Arnie, the dog, which keeps me company every day in the work. And originally it started off in West Cork, but when the downturn happened in 2008, I decided to relocate. So I went to East Cork, to Shanagarry, and I suppose I'm there the last 10 years, and that's where I started building my work, as in I created tableware and some sculptural pieces and some wall art. So this picture here just shows you the raw piece that I made. Now it still needs to be finished and everything like that. Everything that I make is all handmade, hand rolled. And if you can see there, the close up of the image, you can see the hessian cloth, which I roll in by hand into each piece. the Haitian cloth is traditionally used for, we'll say, holding potatoes or grains or anything like that. So I incorporate it into my work. You can see here the finished piece on the left-hand side, the famous tea bag holder, or the other one I use is used tea bags, which is great for the household because it stops a lot of arguments. This is the multiberry color that I have at the moment. It's just based on all kind of Irish berries, between strawberries, gooseberries, blueberries, oranges. So there is 6 different color ranges available. Some of the sculptural work I do is again all made by hand and suitable for outdoors and indoors. The one on the left here is actually about 5 foot high, and it was all made by coiled rings of clay. All the clay I use is stoneware, so it's a good hard working clay. I had to get scaffolding actually to get around this piece. It is all decoration going all around it. It was kiln fired, and it was pretty difficult to get into the kiln, but we got it there in the end. The one on the right then is a piece of wall art that I do based on the foxglove, which is growing in abundance around here. All these pieces are framed and available for on private commissions. The one on the far right then is a close-up of some castle sculpture as well that I used to do, which is it can be lit up as well from the inside, so it's lovely at night when it starts shining. My background is of the love of horses, so I follow point-to-point meetings, you know, which is traditionally horse races over fences in Ireland. So I made this long ceramic piece. I went out one day and to a meeting, and I took a picture of all the lads and their horses lining up for the fence before they took off. So that's where that comes from. And that actually piece is over in America in a private race yard at the moment. So it's nice to see it go further afield. Back to the traditional tableware I do the likes of spoon rests and plates and cake plates and biscuit plates, and all of these are hand painted. Each label is hand painted, all dishwasher, microwave and oven safe as well. So it keeps me busy because everything is made by hand. And I think that's just it really, basically me in a nutshell. I love it, ceramics, and I'm the whole time inventing new items. So if you want to see anything else, it's on Crafters of Ireland website and on Stable Door Pottery. And I just like to thank everyone for viewing this, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Orla. I'm still trying to get my head around you having to get scaffolding in to do that work and trying to get it into a kiln to finish it off. But as I've said with all of the other people presenting, the work is stunning. I mean, it just all speaks for itself. It's just beautiful. And I'm amazed where everybody gets their ideas. So thank you so much. And I'm now going to hand over to Carmel, who is going to give our final presentation of the evening. So over to you, Carmel.
My name is Carmel, and I'm an award-winning photographer. I've had many exhibitions since I graduated college in 1990. I'm primarily a landscape photographer inspired by nature, but I'm also inspired by some built man-made structures and landscapes as well. The word photography actually is Greek for drawing with light, and I'm really passionate about sharing the beauty I see in nature. I like to produce my images to a massive scale because I really want to inspire the viewer to be immersed in the image, and I want them to feel like they can wander in to explore the magic. This triptych is from Woodstock Gardens in Inistioge in County Kilkenny. I live in Waterford, just not too far away from there. And the overall size, there's 3 pieces, each 42 inches wide by 7 foot. So it's nearly 11 foot by 7 foot. So it is quite massive. I love black and white. This is an image I took in Monard Glen outside Blarney in County Cork using a 5-inch by 4-inch plate camera with the hood over my head. And I used a very slow shutter speed. It was quite a dark area. I used quite a slow shutter speed, and this gives the kind of liquid light effect of the water coming down from the broken water mill. I really do love the evocative pair black and white, and I was really lucky to be the first ever photographer to win the Alice Berger Hammerschlag Travel Award, which I used to explore the Escalante area of Arizona and Utah. And sometimes when I photograph an area, it kind of almost feels like I'm rediscovering something or unearthing something which I already know. And I have a real connection with that area. I just absolutely adored it. And these images are from Antelope Canyon. The sensuous slot canyons are carved by floodwaters, and it's a really eerie and magical place to be. I was really fortunate that my friend and patron John Hunt curated the resulting Passage exhibition and later went on to purchase all 6 of the original black and white photographs. I actually built a darkroom to print them, and it was quite a task with my husband and my dad, as we spent several hours at a time in the red light gloom. We had to devise a curved projection wall so that I could ensure even focus, and a pulley system to run the prints through liters of chemicals. And for every single perfect print, there was many ones that had marks on them that didn't come out perfect. So they were a limited edition of a single print, and John bought them. So unfortunately, they're not available. But I was really inspired by the high intensity colors of the canyons that kind of reflect the desert colors above. And I just had to capture them in color as well. I hadn't really used color before. These images are actually on the Crafters website, and they're 42 inches by 8 feet. So you really feel like you can almost walk in and explore and just look around the corner. Inspired by the fiery reds and the oranges of the canyons, I got it into my head that I'd love to create the juxtaposition of fire and ice. So with the help of another travel award, I traveled to Iceland to photograph the glaciers. I was actually 4.5 months pregnant, getting lowered down with hard hat and crampons, taking photographs. And I was really fortunate to be able to exhibit the Fire and Ice exhibition at the Galway Arts Festival when John's collection was loaned to the Galway Hospital Arts Trust. Closer to home, I've been photographing on the Copper Coast at Bunmahon, County Waterford for nearly 25 years now. And the rocks are carved by the sea, and I just love the sensuality of the rocks and the formations, and they just entice me. And I'm happy to say they seem to resonate with people all over the world. Even when I exhibit them in Adelaide at the Adelaide Fringe Festival, I had many people coming up to me sharing their memories about exploring rock pools when they were kids. So I love sharing my images. This is actually a rock formation. It's not a human form. And it was funny, Neil Tabine took particular shine to it at a group exhibition I was in a few years ago. And noting that it was from Bunmahon, which literally means bottom of the Mahon, he quipped and retitled it Pog Mahone, which I'm sure some of you realize is the naughty phrase, kiss my ass. I'm currently working on some new images from Bunmahon. I'm amazed that I still find new elements which inspire me. And when I'm in the zone photographing there, it almost feels like I'm rediscovering some truth that I really want to share with the world. I don't know why I'm so inspired by rocks, but I just know I want to inspire others to look closely at all the beauty around us. These new works are 6 feet tall, and here's a small detail just so you can see the detail at the bottom here. I like to work on bespoke commissions to create unique artworks. And for the Office of Public Works New Ross Garda Station Commission, I was asked to photograph the built landscape that's unique to New Ross. The oil silos along the quays, which are shown here, have actually been removed only in the last week. So these images now form part of the heritage of the town. So if you have a particular place that resonates with you that you'd like me to capture, please do get in touch. Thanks to everyone for this amazing opportunity to share my work with you. Special thanks to the Irish American Business Network, Fiona, Simon, and especially Bernie of Crafters of Ireland. Thank you all so much.
Thanks, Carmel. Again, what can I say? Your work is stunning. The first image of the Woodstock Gardens, as you said, really draws you in. And I was dying to kind of like, you know, find my way through the wood and look to see what else was there. So really, really powerful. So thank you. And now we've come to the end. So thank you to everybody who presented. Just a quick recap. We heard from David O'Malley, we heard from Moira OConnell, Noel Quigley, Fiona Cannon, from Glenn Gibson, Orla O'Rourke, and Carmel Kickers to finish us off there. All of the information on each of the artists and designers, sculptors is available on Crafters of Ireland. And of course, if you'd like to receive a copy of this recording, we're more than happy to send it over to you. And any further information that you'd need, please contact Bernie on the website or craftersofireland@gmail.com. Thank you so much for joining us this evening and enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you.